It's great to have you all here. I am the Executive Director of Code for America and the founder, Jennifer Palka. And we thought we'd get everyone here today really to provide sort of a touch point for those of you who are considering applying to the Code for America program for your city in 2012. Our goal here really is to review our objectives for the program, the process for getting involved, and most importantly, to answer your questions that may have come up as you're considering applying or working on your application. So our focus today is going to be on city staff that are somewhere in the application process. I know that many of you don't work in city government but are interested in just sort of learning about our program, and we're really happy to have you here as well. Do understand that in questions we're going to try to give some priority to applicants and prospective applicants so that we can really help them through the process. So I'm going to quickly review our program with the assumption that most of you are already somewhat familiar with it, and let you hear from one of our partners in our current 2011 cycle, and that's Bill Oates, who's the CIO of the City of Boston, and our wonderful City Program Director, Alyssa Black, will interview him, asking him some questions about how it's going so far. Then Alyssa and I are going to take it back and talk briefly about some of the kinds of projects that we are hearing from all of you would be good common problems, so we're hoping that they will spark your thinking about what you might propose in your application. And then Alyssa's going to review the timeline and process, and then we're going to get to, again, the most important part of this, which is your questions. So with that, let's get started with a brief overview of what Code for America is and its mission. So I'm going to try advancing the slide here. Is that right? No. Sorry, 1 second. There we go. So Code for America was founded in late 2009, so we're very new, because we saw some disturbing problems with long-term negative trends, but we also saw some hopeful trends, and we thought there was an opportunity to bring those two together in a way that hadn't been done before. The big problem that we saw, as many of you are quite familiar with, is that cities are in a fiscal crisis. An alarming number of them are either going bankrupt or reducing their services to citizens. I live in Oakland, California. I know somebody is registered here from the Public Works Department there, and I'd really love to talk to you afterwards, because as a citizen of Oakland, I see that we've cut our police force dramatically. There's many medians in the city that are no longer weeded. The cleaning schedule in the parks is reduced, and rec centers and libraries have reduced hours. And this isn't just something that is happening in Washington. This is something that every citizen in Oakland is aware of when they leave their house, and it's because of this crisis and that we're all trying to deal with. We also saw that there's been this revolution in the internet and the last decade that's really changed how society interacts. People are dramatically more connected. They're connected faster and cheaper ways than ever before. So this revolution has sort of disrupted entire industries, but by and large, government has had a hard time of taking advantage of these approaches and these tools. So citizens are looking at their government and the way that it works and notice that it's falling farther and farther behind. So, you know, when a citizen has to go down to City Hall and stand in line to fill out a lot of forms to, for instance, start a new business, it's not just an inconvenience for them. They also know that their taxpayer dollars are funding a system that's inefficient relative to standards outside government. And that breeds distrust and a lack of confidence in government. So we feel we really need to change that. Now that's the bad stuff. The good news is that a lot of programmers and designers who really care are starting to really care about about government. Programmers and designers who have been mostly involved with what we call Web 2.0. The Center for American Progress put out a study this year that showed that the millennials are actually the most pro-government generation in decades. If this surprises you, it certainly surprised us, but we think it makes a lot of sense. They do see how easy it is to do certain things on the internet, and it's not that they believe that government will work. It works currently. It's they believe firmly that it can work if it's recrafted in their image. We've also been inspired by the open data movement. It's really captured the imagination of do-gooders, entrepreneurs, hackers, and it's driven this big interest in government. So Code for America is fundamentally about calling the web industry to service. We are a new kind of service program. So if that's what we do, how do we do it? We recruit cities, as you guys know. Our 2011 cities are Boston, Philadelphia, Seattle, and DC. They applied just over a year ago. They were among 14 cities who applied, and we asked them, as you're being asked to do now, to provide some ideas about an application that would make their city more efficient, more participatory, and more transparent, and also something that could be reused by another city when it was done. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, obviously. Once we have our cities selected, we select our fellows. This year we had 362 applicants in our first try. Of those we selected 20, so we really chose the cream of the crop. We're very proud of them. They're very passionate and talented. About 2/3 of them are developers, but we also have designers, project managers, communications experts. But really what they all have in common is a desire to serve their country and are very talented in the skills that they have. We take the fellows and we take the cities, but we don't just throw them together. We're bringing a network, a leadership training, a network of mentors and champions, and what we hope is a framework for success. So right now, for instance, they're off in their cities and they're doing 100 interviews, because while our name is Code for America, we really want to understand a problem very deeply before we start writing any lines of code. So we have a saying that the code comes last. The goal really here is not a typical IT project. We are trying to find lightweight, creative solutions that use existing platforms. We're trying to find solutions that cities can sustain on their own, because we have a year-long engagement, and you in a city government need to have something that's flexible enough that you can grow it and expand it without the help of an expensive vendor when we're gone. So as I said, if you're thinking about applying, don't think of it necessarily as just an IT vendor that you're hiring. There's a real network that you're becoming part of here. It's our past cities, it's our future cities, it's all of our supporters, and all the people who really want to see us succeed that come together. And there's a very active ongoing dialogue that's not just about the projects, but really about the problem that cities are facing and how we can get out of this situation. I'm very briefly going to review what the year looks like for us. We've just had our first Code for America Institute, where our fellows come to San Francisco, and they have the leadership, negotiation, diplomacy trainings to give them the skills to be successful in a city context. We assume they are coming in with excellent technical skills, and I found that to be true, but they need to understand how to work in a government context. Right now, in February, our fellows are all off visiting the cities that they're assigned to. They're having a great time there, and they're job shadowing, meeting people in city government, understanding how cities work, but most importantly, doing the interviews and the deep understanding of the problem that they're tasked with solving. They're also finding a lot of other little problems that they're going to work on over the year, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. They'll be back in San Francisco March 1st. And they spend through September developing the solution to the problem. You'll see, if you are part of our program, you'll see that you get a lot of status updates and early prototypes along the way, so you don't have to wait till September to see it. But in September, we bring the cities together so that they can see not just what was built for them, but was built for all the other cities in the program. And as years go on, you'll see stuff that was built in the past and how that's evolved as well. And also just talk again about the challenges that are facing cities. We dedicate November and October and November to, again, the sustainability point and how is it going to be carried forward when the fellows are gone. So it's a significant amount of time devoted to that. So that's basically an overview of the program. We thought the most helpful thing to do at this point would be to talk with one of our current participants. And Alyssa Black, who handles our government relations, is going to take it from here. Thanks, Alyssa.
Hi. Thank you, Jen. I'd like to introduce Bill Oates. He's the Chief Information Officer for the City of Boston. He was an early supporter of Code for America and really a leader of innovation at the local level. As Jen mentioned, Boston is one of our 4 partner cities this year, and we're working on an important project with Boston to make education smarter. So thanks again for joining us today, Bill. Let's get started. So Bill, what first excited you about Code for America?
Well, a lot of things, but first of all, let me just welcome everyone. Good morning to all the folks out on the West Coast, and good afternoon to everyone east. And the one point I was going to make is that on the slide, when we talk about making education smarter in Boston, we usually spell it S-M-A-H-T-E-R, so it has the Boston accent with it. But anyway, we were very excited about Code for America for a lot of reasons. We were excited about Code for America mainly because the mission of Code for America and the approach of Code for America was very consistent with how we have been looking at technology and have been looking at dealing with the city's problems here in Boston for a number of years. What we've been trying to do here is to take information technology and collaboration and really make it relevant to all the business units here in the city. And as we started thinking about that, the need for transformation, the need for innovation, the need to really adapt the city's culture to take some risk and do things differently has been something that we've been on a path towards for a number of years. So as we started thinking about Code for America and were introduced to the concept and to the approach, it clearly was exactly what we were looking for to continue that path by being able to add to that, sense of innovation and change, the opportunity to get some really smart, fellows into our shop to help think about building this ecosystem across various cities and sharing products and services that we develop in conjunction with a team like the Code for America Fellows, but being able to really change how we look at technology across the city, how we engage with our various constituencies, and again, being able to add the creativity and the talent of the CFA Fellows and expose them to the passion and commitment that our folks here in the city have for government and service. So that concept was very interesting to us, and we started down the path. We're thrilled to be selected and are absolutely enjoying the current experience of hosting the fellows and starting to work through our problem that we're going to develop solutions against.
So Bill, can you tell me how you decided on which project to partner with us on? I know we're talking a little bit about the education project. How did you pick that one?
Well, I think as we went through the entire path with our Code for America project, that was probably the most difficult one because as most of the folks on the webinar, I'm sure, can relate to, we have lots of problems. We have lots of challenges across the city. We have challenges in public safety. We have challenges in our health and human services. But the mayor of Boston is very focused on what we can do to help public education here in the city of Boston. So we have a lot of things going on across the city in the more traditional IT venues, new systems, better data platforms to help support the folks that are driving education change within the city. And as we were going through our assessment of our possible project for CFA, it really seemed to be a great opportunity to take this project and allow it to be our kind of innovative, creative way that we're going to be able to make education smarter in the city of Boston by leveraging tools and new ideas on top of kind of the traditional systems improvements that we're going to be making in the city. But that seemed where we would be able to really affect change for the kids across the city of Boston, the parents in the city of Boston, and the teachers in the city of Boston. So we were able to identify that as the opportunity to really make some change and take advantage of this relationship with the CFA team.
Bill, you mentioned taking a lot of problems in Boston and taking the opportunity to make that change. What other benefits do you see this project bringing? Are there efficiencies that we'll see through the data sharing? And then, how will this build an ecosystem?
Well, for us, the benefit is very wide. There is the benefit that we will get. One of the opportunities I think that we have here is when we think about return on investment or financial efficiency benefits. One thing that we have found in other projects across the city is our ability to develop new channels of engagement and communication to the constituents in the city. Is a great thing for the constituents because they, I think as Jennifer mentioned earlier, are really looking to be engaged more with their government. But for us, if you think about it, it's also a very cost-effective way. Building these channels that are using better information, mobile technologies, et cetera, are giving us an ability to be more instantaneous in terms of delivering information to a parent about a child or to a child about a program that might be available for them. But again, it's also moving us away from that traditional government approach of coming to the counter, filling out the paperwork, doing all those things that lead to the inefficiencies that were mentioned earlier. So we do believe that there's going to be some great efficiency value that will come out of the project with CFA. But that's in addition, to what we're really hoping for, which is this relevance, right? Which is to take the folks that are involved in education around the city and really give them new tools, new access to information, more control over their own experience as a student, a teacher, a parent. That's where we're going to see most of the value. And then we also have the other side values of the fact that, one of the things I would encourage folks to think about as they walk down the application path with you folks is it actually works out very well in terms of the structure of the engagement that we have, because once we signed in and once we got our project developed, there is a sense of urgency, right? We can bring together the disparate city agencies and entities that are involved in delivering education in the city and kind of rally them around, the fact that we have this project, we have the CFA fellows here with us. So it also helps us break down some of those silos, creates great brainstorming, great conversation about the problem and potential solutions. So across the board, we see benefit, from lots of angles on the project.
Thanks, Bill. We had mentioned and we talk a lot about this fiscal environment and how we're how it puts constraints on different cities. Can you tell us a little bit about how you justified funding a program like Code for America?
Well, I would first say that, like everyone else, we are dealing with those, same fiscal challenges here in the city of Boston. Boston's been a very well-run city from a financial perspective for years. So I think our problems are maybe less than some others are dealing with today, but it's been a problem for us for a number of years. Overall, it I think helps us with our overall IT agenda here in the city because so many of the things that we do are adding value and efficiency to operating departments across the city. As we looked specifically at Code for America and looked at the investment that was required from the city to participate in the project, it really, for me personally, playing the role I play, became a value proposition for us. So as we started looking at what the scope of the project was going to be, as we looked at the skill set that we were going to be able to obtain through the CFA fellows that were being, at the time, recruited into the program, and the time frame, from when they would arrive in the city and when we would have a product actually developed. When we looked at the totality of that, it was very clear to me that this investment the city was making was just on looking at it very straight, very much a cost-effective use of city dollars. There was no question that this was going to be a great value for the city. So I believe that standalone, in terms of the resources that we are able to utilize for the course of this project, the commitment of these resources, the talent and the creativity of these resources delivers us great value for the project. In addition to that, the opportunity to be part of this growing ecosystem where not only are the fruits of our project going to be available to other cities, but the fruits of other cities' project will be available to us. And in addition to that, supporting the mission of CFA, which is to bring talented young folks into government to help accelerate that passion, that we have here and that the fellows have by applying to the program. Those, to me, are all additional benefits we get well above and beyond the initial value statement that we saw from the project itself in the beginning.
Yeah, and I'd like to just take a little bit of time to talk about the city participation fee. We typically staff a team of 5 fellows on a project. That's what we have, 5 fellows working on the Boston project. We do have a model, though, that we're looking at where we would put 3 fellows on a project, and so that can change the participation fee from $250,000 to $150,000. So we're looking at these 2 different models now, teams of 5 and teams of 3. So I just want to mention that for the people on the call that are asking questions about a participation fee. So I'm going to wrap this up really quickly, Bill, and ask one last question. I know we've been working with your staff on some quick wins and early benefits. Our fellows got there about a little over a week ago. Can you tell us about some of the projects that they've worked on and some of these early benefits you've seen?
Sure. One of the things I think all the applicants should be thinking about, in kind of the way we thought about Code for America, is that, as I mentioned earlier, we have lots of things that take up our time on a day-to-day basis within the organization. It's day-to-day support issues. It's the bigger and bigger projects that we're working on from an IT perspective. And again, one of the things that the CFA project has allowed us to do is kind of overlay a lot of those things that maybe we wouldn't have the time or the resources to get to be the focal point for the fellows as they're here. The additional benefit to that is bringing, this smart group of developers and designers into our environment, and putting them through lots of interviews and exposure to other things that we're doing in the city, because of their natural capability of looking at problems and coming up with solutions. We've already, seen all kinds of benefits from the team. Last week we've had a difficult weather season here in Boston, and for a period of time last week, we actually put the team into our call center where we handle all of our kind of snow calls, and we've been supporting this part of the city with some really good technology over the last couple of years. And we thought that our schools got closed, so that canceled a couple of the interviews they had planned. But we also thought it would be a great opportunity for them to really live and breathe the kind of issues that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And there's some great stories of how the fellows, when they were manning the phones, solved individual problems for constituents when they called in during the storm. But I think also just they were able to do some things that made our operation more efficient in terms of the streets that get closed in the city during an emergency notification period, in terms of the contact lists and distributing that contact information to the right folks, and make sure that they could get it in a little more easy to use format. They have had some great discussions with our Boston Schools folks about transportation and school buses and what we do with our school buses right now. So I would say that even in the first week of our experience with the team, they've bubbled up 4 or 5 really good low-hanging fruit solutions that I am sure by the end of this process is going to be a pretty good portfolio of benefit to the city, very kind of additional to what we hope to accomplish with the core project.
Thank you so much, Bill, and thanks again for joining us today. Boston has been a great partner city for us, and one that continually is looking for new approaches to solving problems. I would like to open it up and take some questions for Bill. Are there any questions that we can have Bill answer for us while he's here? Okay. Well, before we move on, just so that you know, we'll be taking questions at the very end of our presentation, and we'll queue those up and answer them then. So thanks. I'd like to hand it over to Jen. She's going to talk to you more about common problems we've heard throughout cities and opportunities for new solutions.
Go off. Oh, off mute. Hi. Thanks again, Bill. We really appreciated that. And thanks, Alyssa, for a great interview. Yeah, these common problems and sort of proposed application projects are really just to spur your thinking before we dive in. Again, you know, the best projects for Code for America are ones that come from real problems that you're experiencing that you think our approach could have an impact on. So if you want to apply with one of these directly, you're certainly welcome to, but we really do hope that it makes you think about other problems in your city that we can help with. The first story I thought I'd share with you actually comes from Peter Coate, who's in the Economic Development Department in Santa Cruz, California. I think Peter is not on the line, but if you're here, Peter, and you want to chime in on my story, please do. Peter explained to me last year that Santa Cruzians think of themselves as sort of one of the greenest communities in the country, and yet each day most of them get in their cars and drive over the hill to San Jose to work because that's where the jobs are. One of the reasons there are so few jobs in Santa Cruz is that to start a business there requires filling out dozens and dozens of forms for dozens of permits. Business owners often don't actually know what forms they need to fill out, or they don't know what order to do them in, or they can't track the permits process through the system, so they know when they can get back each piece to start the next piece of the process, and so you have a lot of business that's going elsewhere. So Peter's idea was to make it easy to fill out one core form with the basic information, flow that information into the panoply of other forms that need to be filled out, steer the business owner through the process, and provide a view into the status of each permit that makes its way through the system. So some of the outcomes, of course, would be reduced errors, less paperwork, and really a business-friendly environment in Santa Cruz that would then, of course, reduce commuting and protect the ecological environment in Santa Cruz. So that's one idea. I think, Alyssa, did you want to talk about the next one?
Another widespread problem throughout cities is this lack of open data and data sharing among departments. Siloed departments really mean siloed data. So an example I like to talk about is city health and human service clients receive services from multiple city departments, and yet cities don't have the ability to get that holistic view of their client. Clients provide the same documentation to multiple departments, and the caseworkers have to enter that information that has already been provided to other agencies. So there's that duplicate work and that poor customer service. But by opening up data and data sharing across agencies, we can improve how the clients, caseworkers, the human service agencies, and even providers interact with each other, how they obtain and share information, and even access city programs and services. Cities could also see a reduction in the time spent entering that duplicate information. Bill talked about the education project that we're working on in Boston, and it's similar to this idea of sharing data across different departments and siloed databases. In Boston, there's 4 departments that are sharing data to make better decisions that will ultimately make education smarter. So it's really that evidence-based decision-making that can really support cities right now in this fiscal crisis. So building this platform for continual innovation by the city and civic coders is really where I see a benefit for opening data and data sharing. Jen's going to talk about our last example problem that we've heard throughout cities.
Great, thanks, Alyssa. So one thing we hear over and over from elected officials, city staffers, is that if city governments are going to survive this fiscal crisis, they need to figure out how to get citizens to help. So there's a huge expectation that citizens have. If there's something wrong in their neighborhood, if their driveway is snowed in, as Bill was talking about, if their garbage can is missing, who do they call? They typically call City Hall. So you have government serving as a hub for all information. But of course, when, for instance, the snow plows are overburdened, who would be a better person to call? Potentially your neighbor. So how can we help do this? Well, part of our process is really digging deep in and figuring out what all the opportunities are. So I don't want to say that we know what the solution is, but we do see that there are many channels for understanding who's willing to help, who's connected, and who cares about various issues. Number of mayors have talked about using Facebook for this. That may work, it may not work. One thing that we've certainly seen is that there's a lot of latent data in 311 systems. If you have a 311 in your city, there's something you know then about what certain neighbors have in common and what they care about. For instance, if on a certain block you have 5 different people who have reported the same light out, those are 5 people who have probably have something in common about what they care about in their neighborhood. And to the extent that cities are really looking for people that they can go to, that they can mobilize, who can help solve from that ground level up, there's the start of something, and we think that that might be the beginning of an idea that could be exploited to really help citizens, help cities get through this tough time using the help of citizens. And it's not really just about getting the citizens to help each other, it's also about getting the citizens to help government make better decisions, spread the word, and talk about city government's priorities. Some of the outcomes, of course, would be saving time and money and finding those civic leaders that can help you solve those problems. So we have talked mostly about efficiency and citizen participation here. I want to give a little nod before we go on to our question and answer part to this concept of reusability. I mentioned when I talked about our first 4 cities for this year that the City of DC has proposed a project, or we're working on a project to become its own organization, really, called Civic Commons. The idea of Civic Commons is that each jurisdiction in the country, whether it's state, local, or federal, is solving their own technology problems using mostly using vendors, and not taking the opportunity to share technology that's built for one jurisdiction with another jurisdiction. We think there's a huge opportunity to save the government or millions of dollars immediately, and our goal is to save the government $1 billion in the first 3 years of Civic Commons. We have a couple of great early examples. Vivek Kundra, the CIO in the federal government, has donated the IT dashboard, and here in San Francisco, Chris has given a project called the San Francisco Enterprise Addressing System, which cost them several $1 million to develop, worked with our staff here at Code for America to open source this and make it available to any other city that wants to use it. This is just one example of something that we think we can do. If another city needs a system like that, there's no need to spend the millions. There are certainly costs to customize it and implement it in your city, but they're not on the order of millions. If we can replicate that success, I think we have an important way to help cities here. So that's a little bit about our Civic Commons project, and the idea that all of our Code for America projects are best if they can be reused. With that, I'm going to hand it back to Alyssa to just go through the timeline and process, and then we'll take your questions.
Okay, thanks, Jen. Now I'd like to take you through the application process. I hope the examples that we provided earlier give you a framework when you're thinking about some of the problems that Code for America can partner with you on. We're looking for participants in this larger movement, government partners that can benefit from what we provide and help build a new kind of public service. We're looking to work on lightweight, creative applications that leverage existing tools and data in a new way. So we described a few problems earlier. We want to work on projects that provide transparency, efficiency, and citizen participation. Jen just mentioned the Civic Commons. We're also looking for reusability in those projects. We need a strong internal champion for to take us through the process. And that champion is somebody that can help us get through any roadblocks that we might have along the way, and somebody to just guide us through the politics that we can often see in government. Cities do provide a participation fee. Earlier when we were talking with Bill, I mentioned that we have teams of 5 and teams of 3 that we partner with cities, and that participation fee can range from $250,000 to $150,000. And then lastly, we would like applicants, or we need applicants to secure funding, to secure those funding sources prior to our selection, basically, of your city. So what does the process actually look like? March 1st is the deadline to apply. So we're well into the application process. We'll announce our selected cities June 1st, and then ideally wrap up that contracting piece by August 1st. And then 2012 fellows arrive in San Francisco to begin the new cycle. Again, March 1st is the deadline, so we're working towards that, 1 month left to apply. We want applicants to have an IT sponsor, so somebody from your Department of Technology, and a non-tech sponsor. And the application process, we ask you to describe 3 potential projects. Again, these are opportunities to work on lightweight, creative solutions in your city. And Bill didn't mention it, but something that you should know, during the application process, we're looking for leadership, we're looking for funding, and we're looking for innovation and cities that want to take a different approach. And so while you describe your 3 potential projects, just know that those might not be the projects that we end up working on. I mentioned Bill because Boston, actually, we're not working, the education project didn't come up and wasn't one of the projects that they applied with. So just know that it's not set in stone, it's something that we'll work with you on, but we're really looking for those 3 key qualities. So deadline is March 1st, and how can you get involved? A lot of you that are participating today are in the application process right now. If you need more information, you can go to codeforamerica.org/cities. I also encourage you to ask us questions after I wrap this up. And if you're not a city official, I think that there are some participants on this call that aren't city officials, we want you to make some noise. I've heard from CIOs across the country that they're getting emails from citizens, and it's igniting them, it's giving them that little flame to give me a call and learn more about Code for America. So take action. We have tools for you on our website. It's codeforamerica.org/citizen action. And then lastly, one of the successes of the cities that applied last year was their involvement in communication with us along the way. So I encourage you to contact me, alyssa@codeforamerica.org. I can answer any questions you have. We can brainstorm on the projects and some of the problems that your city is facing. And so that's really you should be contacting me, and we should be in regular communication. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope we've set the framework for our program and for the application process, and I hope that you guys can take it to the next step with me. I'm going to open it up for questions and answers now.
Great. Thanks so much, Alyssa. We do have a question from Michelle Rinaldi, who is asking if we have room for county governments in addition to cities. I'll take a stab at that and just say that we are really looking for stuff that can be shared across this network, and so I know that there are a lot of services in common between cities and counties, and if there is something that we think is a fit, it's really about the dialogue that we have with you, so please do reach out to Alyssa if you're considering applying from a county. We did have Boulder apply last year. They kind of applied as a city and a county, and it would have worked. We are also talking about expanding into a specific county cycle of Code for America. That's not going to happen probably in the next couple of months, but it's certainly in our sights. Let's see. I'll pitch this one to Alyssa. The next question is from Gary. Can groups of cities participate?
Hi, Gary. Yes, groups of cities can participate. I have spoken last year. Seagate applied, which was the consortium or Colorado's Association of IT. So we've seen an example of that in the past. I do encourage cities to start talking with me now so that I can pair you up and help you share ideas and really collaborate on some projects that you would like to work on together. There would be some sort of memorandum of understanding or something that we would want the cities to agree to when we move forward with them in the application process. But yes, we see often that cities face common problems, and so it's practical for cities to partner up.
Great. The next question is from George, who asks, what happens in a scenario where a solution takes more than a year to develop? I'll try tackling that one. One answer is we do try to choose projects that our fellows can have a real impact on in 1 year, and it's really less than a year, to be honest. They're certainly not coding that whole time. But if you look at, for instance, the Boston project that we talked about with Bill, they're going to start something there. They're going to spark something. They're going to get that data out, get it unsiloed, write an API, and hopefully get a bunch of other people writing applications on that API. So it will certainly exist long after they're gone. There are certain deliverables in the time frame that they're there, but it's very hard, of course, to define the beginning and end of a project that needs to live and be useful to a city in an active way. We do spend a fair amount of time, though, scoping the projects that you propose so that we find something where the fellows can look back at the end of the year and say, I did that, I started that. That's why Alyssa's mentioning that there's often a lot of shift between the time you apply and the time your fellows arrive and what we're actually going to do, and that is something we do in close partnership with you.
So,
you want me to read the next question? I see there are many projects that are needed. Will you consider a territory government? I think that's a question that, I'm sorry, that's Easter Bruce. Would we consider a territory government? I think we probably want to handle that one offline. Why don't you reach out to Alyssa at codeforamerica.org, and you guys can talk about that.
That sounds great. So I'll take Adriel Hampton's question. On the government side, who are the key stakeholders getting involved in getting cities involved in CFA? Mostly I've seen it's from the Department of Technology, it's the CIOs and the CTOs. We've also seen a lot of staff from the mayor's office, because they have that kind of overarching broad view of challenges that their cities are facing. They're really great stakeholders for us. And as I mentioned, we're looking for an IT sponsor and a non-IT sponsor. And so that non-IT sponsor can be a primary department stakeholder. For example, education is a key participant and stakeholder in our Boston project. And so we have contacts there and in the Boston School District.
Next question, Tiffany, who's from Sonoma. Hi, Tiffany. Asks about, oops, it just moved. Asks about project documents and processes available for inspection as cities go through their project. I'll take a stab at that. Tiffany, transparency and communication are really core values of Code for America, and so we pretty much document everything and make it available. Right now you can see that in action because the fellows are in their cities doing all of their interviews. There's only a couple places where that's sort of made confidential when, for instance, some of our fellows in Boston are interviewing students and their names are redacted. But otherwise, it's completely transparent. You can see what's going on. We follow an agile development process that involves, by its nature, a lot of documentation, and all of that is free for the cities to see as it's going on, and they're also involved in very frequent update meetings so they know exactly what's happening. Tiffany, did that answer your question? Great.
Okay, so this next question will be for Bill. Bill's still on the call. Bill, can you comment on opposition to Code for America, mostly around the financial aspect?
I'd be glad to. I wouldn't say that we in Boston had any opposition to the Code for America project. I think more likely other people will experience what we did here. It's not opposition. It's that Code for America and the relationship, it's a little different. It's a different approach on how you do IT projects and how you move forward with these things. So I think the sponsorship that's required is to keep things moving. So we, I think as either Alyssa or Jennifer mentioned before, we have a very tight relationship with the mayor's office, and so we did have that IT side sponsorship as well as the business side coming out of the mayor's office. And I think it was helpful because as you know, you run into challenges, right? Because every investment that we make, you know, is competing with other investments that we need to make. The fiscal situation we're all in makes us make tough decisions on dollar expenditures. And then as we went through kind of the procurement and the contracting side, sometimes, and I think Alyssa said this, you just need somebody to keep it moving forward so it doesn't stop and doesn't allow you to be an obstruction to you meeting your deadlines. So I don't think we had any real opposition, but we had to make a decision about the investment, and I think that once everyone understood what the scope of the project is and the mission of Code for America is, I think everybody's been supportive of it. But what you really need is you really need somebody that can keep moving the process forward and overcome the obstacles, you know, that people run into just to fund any kind of initiative like this.
Thanks so much, Bill. Tim Williamson asked about maintenance costs, fixes, patches, and updates that are handled by the agency. It is a one-year fellowship, and again, our goal is to make this sustainable for the organization, for the city government after we're gone. There isn't an ongoing, well, there'll certainly be an ongoing alumni relationship, and we're going to figure out a little bit more what that looks like after our first year is up. But it is true that the city will need to sustain the application, including things like fixes, when we're gone. We do hope that many of our fellows go on to build, you know, great smart businesses that can support you guys or go into city government. So we think there'll be a real network and ecosystem of support around these kinds of applications. I'm going to take another question from Mukesh. Let's see, steering committee, are there entities outside of CFA or cities that can participate? You're talking about who else is involved in our network and from the private sector as well. Is that right, Mukesh? I will tell you that there are many companies that support our work. There are companies that, you know, normally charge lots of money to do trainings that have done stuff for us for free. There are companies that are giving us free technology. And there's a lot of people who want to see us succeed, and I think that's great. We do have some principles around our technology choice that say that we're going to make choices that we think are the best choices for the city. They're not dependent on our funding, et cetera. But we do have a fair amount of private sector involvement ruled by that set of principles. And I hope that answers your question. I think we've got a couple more questions.
So I'll take one. This is from Jason. Could you please clarify whether or not you would consider a project application that is a collaboration of one or more cities and the county in which they are situated? So sorry if I wasn't clear when I responded earlier. Yes, we would accept an application. We should start talking now, so I encourage you to reach out to me and let's start talking about those cities and that county and what that relationship and that project would look like. Okay, let's take another one. This one is from Brian. Any suggestions for cities going through an election cycle? As I mentioned, this can be tricky. I think it was Adriel that asked who our stakeholders are that can bring Code for America to their city. And if it comes from the mayor's office and there's a change in mayors, we would just want to ensure that we can maintain support, and that our allies and the people that we worked with to bring Code for America to their city remain, and if they don't, that the value that we bring is instilled in the new appointees and that new mayor. I don't know, Jen, do you want to add anything to that?
I think, to be honest, I think it does make it a little bit more of a difficult situation for us, and we're looking for environments where we can be successful, and having a stable administration, an administration that will continue through the year of our engagement is a positive factor as we're reviewing the applicants for the year. It's one of many factors that we look at. We're coming up on the end of the hour. I'm going to give everybody one more minute to get any last questions in, but it looks like we're just at the end of the hour. We've gotten through most of them. It looks like there's a question about the local developer community, and I will quickly add that, okay, that's from Dan. We do work really heavily with the local developer community, and one of the great outcomes, I think, of working with Code for America is that we will help you tap in, if you aren't already, or amplify any efforts you already have, tapping into that community of developers who are interested in helping city government. We hope that that kind of collaboration that you'll see with Code for America Fellows can continue with local developers when we're gone. Glad to see Peter and Tim W. connecting over this business portal. I hope a lot comes of that and that we can help out in some way. Let's see. It looks like if you guys can stay on for 1 minute, Rick Nixon is asking, would CFA consider trades or contributions of proven technology in lieu of cash to participate? Rick, we would love contributions of proven technology to Civic Commons. It does not help us with our funding situation, so in terms of getting actual fellows on a project, we have to have some funding in order to do that. We pay the fellows a very small stipend. They are essentially volunteers. Think of them as Peace Corps volunteers, but somebody does have to cover that money, and that's what the participation fee is for. But again, if you have contributions of proven technology and you feel like that could go into Civic Commons, be available to other cities who could use it, and then you guys can leverage what other cities are putting in Civic Commons. That's the purpose of that project. We think it's a key way that we are going to change the model here and make it more sustainable, government technology more sustainable in the long run. Don't let Code for America's program get in the way of you doing Civic Commons. Get that application into the Commons as soon as you can, please. All right. With that, thanks, Rick. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to pitch Civic Commons right there at the end. I think that's all the time we have. I want to thank Bill so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and of course all the support that you've given to Code for America and all the leadership that you've shown. Alyssa, great job. Thank you so much. I want to thank Catherine Barrett at O'Reilly for doing such a wonderful job with our webinar, and Abhi Namani for setting it up for us. And all of you who came and asked questions and contributed, you've got Alyssa's information. If you want to talk to me about anything else, I'm jen@codeforamerica.org, or you can follow me at Polkadot on Twitter. Again, thank you all so much for being here.